Welcome again, everybody. My name is Shannon Kelly. I serve as the officer for Young Adult and Campus Ministries on the presiding bishop's staff. I also serve, part of my role is also directing the Camino Project, which is a Lilly grant that we got focusing on helping parents raise faithful kids. So if you see my name in other places, that is why. I'm grateful for all of you that are here. I know some of you have applied and received grants in the past, and so I'm super excited to have you, and I'm really excited to have some new folks here. I am always here to answer questions, and so you can always send me an email. And if you haven't yet, I will also connect you with your provincial coordinator because they are really helpful. Provincial Young Adult and Campus Ministry Coordinator, because they're really helpful also throughout the grant process. So to start off with, just giving you, this is in the grant applications, this is on the website, but wanted to go over this between now and September 18th when grants are due. Obviously, you guys can get together with folks, you can discern. We'll talk a little bit more about having a team for that in a minute. If you haven't yet and you know you're going to apply, you might want to give your bishop's office a heads up that you'll need their signature so that they can let you know when the bishop is in the office or not. So that's just a little heads up on that piece of it. You do need to turn in your applications by 10 p.m. on November 18th. We're really firm about that just because if we let other people submit them late, then everyone could submit that late. And we have a group of folks, very faithful folks, who have set blocks of time aside to read these and discern with me. So we're really tight on that deadline. You will not hear the decision until February because Executive Council has to approve the recommendations that we send on to them. So as soon as Executive Council happens and they vote on the grants that we recommended, you will get an email from me, and more information will be in that email. So that's just a heads up as well. There's a little lag time there. This year, if you've applied before, we have the same sort of 4 categories. This year we have $135,000 to give away. The development grant is our biggest grant, meaning biggest money grant that you can apply for. So $8,000 to $20,000. And you can spend that money over, $8,000 to $30,000. You can spend that money over a 2-year period. Because with these development grants, people are often starting or restarting, and it takes a while to get that jump started and going. So we want to honor that and give you 2 years to spend that money. The next 2 categories are what we call our program grants, the campus ministry grant, young adult ministry grant. These are really meant to help you start a new kind of program, try something new, do something innovative, maybe take a risk on something that you don't have in your budget currently. And so we invite you to think about what are those programmatic things that we need a little bit of seed money for, or we need some supplies for, or we have this vision and we just need some extra buy-in. The final one is the project grant. So these are from anywhere from $100 to $2,000. And these are for like one-off projects. So we need books for a given study. We need money to travel to our provincial gathering. Those kinds of things that are just a one-off expense that the program or the ministry just needs a little bit of extra cash for that. You will see on the grant that there are different grant requirements. And 2 of them came from General Convention. So those are ones that you'll see both on the written grant and then on the online form that you need to fill out. The first one just states that your diocese has to be contributing their fair share to the church-wide office or have a waiver. And so if you don't know, I can send you a link where you can look that up, and you can also reach out to your diocesan office. As of now, I think we only have maybe a handful, if that, who can't apply for grants because they either don't pay or don't have a waiver. So for most people, this isn't an issue. but wanted to raise that. And if you have questions, just reach out to me. The second one is a relatively new one. It started in 2022, and this is really to help the church at large know where is our grant money going, and to make sure that we are equally weighting our grant money and the money that we give out, so that communities of color are getting grants and money and funding and help with writing their grants and all that good stuff. Because in a study, we found that that wasn't necessarily the case. And so there was a general convention resolution about this. So you'll see really odd questions that you may not know how to answer, like how many people of this various demographic come to your thing? How many do you want to come? So you'll have to put percentages or numbers in there. You can fudge those. The important part for us, this time around, we've done it the last few years, is at the end, there's a narrative part. So if you're starting something new, this is really important, because you can say, these are the folks that we're hoping to reach out to. And so with that, I know that this particular resolution and requirement focuses on communities of color. We also love to see if you're reaching communities that are lower income, or folks that don't necessarily have a neighborhood church to go to. So really looking at how are we serving the wider community within this context. As you're filling this out, if you have questions, again, reach out. I know it's a little bit awkward, maybe a lot awkward, to say we have X number of people or this percentage of people. And we've had more than one grant come through, and all of them are zeros because they're starting up something new. So don't worry about turning that in either. What I will say is this is about the community that you're either currently serving or trying to create. So we don't need, if you're doing a diocesan new ministry, we don't need the numbers of the whole diocese. We really just want who you're trying to serve and who you're trying to reach. Same if you're doing in a congregation. If it's part of the congregation, you can put in all the congregation numbers, but if you're really trying to reach just folks that are on the college campus or just young adults, you can count that as your group. So you have a little bit of wiggle room there. Before I go into grant discernment, are there, and it won't let me go back, are there questions about the two pieces that you need to fill out that were given to us by General Convention resolution, those requirements? Any questions about those? And I can't see everybody on my screen, so just speak up, unmute yourself and speak up if you have a question.
This may be obvious in the application process, but I guess what I'm wondering is, well, one, you have a list of which dioceses do and do not, are not compliant with the paying their assessment piece. Is there a way that we need to demonstrate that we are compliant? Is this, particularly this screen right here with these questions about communities and whatnot, do we indicate this information in our narrative, or is there a section on the application form to speak to these things? How are we making sure we're complying, I guess?
Yeah, great question. So this one, the one that makes sure that your diocese is paying its full assessment or has a waiver, that has a check mark on the Microsoft Word form that you can fill out. So it's literally just a check mark. I think it's right above where your bishop has to sign. And I do have a list when we get off. I meant to send this earlier, but when we get off, I'll put that link in there because you can literally just look it up on the website. It's all there. For this one we have you enter into the online form. So you don't need to include it in your narrative. You don't, if you're trying to reach out, obviously, to, communities of color or a brand new neighborhood, you can put that in your narrative, but you don't need to worry about incorporating all of this into your grant. So when you go to the online form for this one, there will be numbers and percentages that you can enter in. And I know it seems tedious, but that way when I have to make my report to executive council, I have all the information that we need that I can just easily download. So great
Right.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so grant discernment, hopefully you guys have just started this a little bit. If you haven't, and if you're writing this sort of as a, you're in a new position or you're in an old position and you're trying something new, which is where I was as a campus minister. I sat and wrote one of these grants many, many years ago. I encourage you to reach out to your board or vestry if you have those, if you have any advisors, if you have young adult ministers, anyone else that can, even if you're far along in the grant process, give you feedback. And look at it with a fresh set of eyes and say, oh my gosh, if we're trying this Lenten study, what if we also did this? Or, those kinds of things. So make sure that you reach out beyond what you know for the ministry and what you're trying to do. Reach out to some trusted folks and have them read it. It's also good at the end to have someone read it for editing so that you are making sure that um, all that what you want to say is actually there. I've turned in things like that before, and I was like, ooh, I wish I had an editor. So I encourage you to have someone, even if it's just a friend, give it a read of the things that we miss when we're editing our own work. For the grant process, obviously you've had some time to reflect. Maybe you're still doing that. Maybe you're still exploring. And we invite you to do that and really dig deeply. Part of the exploration, if you have questions, again, we encourage you to reach out to your young adult and campus ministry provincial um, coordinator. And when we're off this call, I will send you the link so you know exactly who your person is if you don't already. And I say that because they're just really good people to reach out to, and they have so much information and they can give you some guidance. So as you're exploring and planning this out, there's someone that you can sound things off of. So please feel free to do that. The grant process you do once you're starting to write your grant itself, be thinking about what kind of video that you can create. I want to stress, I can't stress this enough. This does not have to be a highly produced video. This does not have to be a video that will win any awards. It's really you or other people in your ministry sharing and inviting people into getting to know your ministry and what you're trying to do. So you can use your iPhone. You can use a camera if you want to. I don't even know if anyone still has the like video camera recorders, but you can use whatever you want to create this. Um, and again, it doesn't have to be high quality. You can literally record that on your phone and then put it in the application. So if you have questions about that, reach out. You do need your bishop's signature. And that is simply it's for a number of reasons. Mostly it's so that your bishop knows that you're wanting to do this new thing. We've had this happened twice where someone reached out to their bishop and they said, hey, we want to submit this grant application. And they said, oh, you don't need a grant application. We'll just give you the money. So you might be one of those lucky people that has a bishop that just says, we'll give you the $7,000 or whatever it is. And it's also good to have your bishop's support. They want to know what's going on and what new and creative things are going on. And so, that's a really good thing. And then something I learned in seminary many, many years ago, you never want to surprise a bishop. So just making sure that they know what's going on is always a good thing. We're going to go through some of the criteria. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. So their signature on a piece of paper, how do we submit that? Because I see the grants are digitally submitted and I haven't clicked all the way through. So if it's clear, please forgive me there. But yeah, just some clarity there would help.
Yeah, so there's two different ways that can happen because I know getting the signature can cause delays and backups and, sort of a headache. So there's two different ways. If you get it as a PDF, you can put that as a separate file that you submit. If you get like their physical signature on a piece of paper, you can literally take a picture of that and submit that. And if they are traveling in a way or they can't get to their computer to do it, they can also email me directly and just say, I approve and whatever. And then I compile all of those so that they're in the same space. So when you are in the application, you can put in a number of documents, obviously your grant itself, your video. And then if you have a signature, if you did your budget separately, you can sort of submit different pieces of the grant process. So does that help? Okay. So criteria, what are we looking for? We're really looking for how do you incorporate any sort of new learning, leadership development, training, teaching young adults new things. We're in the middle of a research project right now, seeing what kind of training and learning and leadership skills young adults do need to enter further into either ministry within the church or leadership within their communities. And so this is something we really find important. Does the whole thing have to be about this? No. But if you're teaching like a small set of people to run small groups for your campus ministry or young adult ministry, that's brilliant. If you're doing a Lenten study or an Advent study or doing, I don't know, some other sort of project, we just want to see that you're incorporating some sort of learning for the young adults themselves. If your grant is especially one of the development grants, we want to know that your ministry is supported by your diocese or congregation or other ministry context. And this is really so that we, if you go for a development grant and we give you a big chunk of money, but there's not the support there, the likelihood of that being sustainable goes down dramatically if you don't have the support of your diocese or a congregation or wider ministry context. So we just like to see that. And I know if you're starting something new, you may not have all of that support yet, but you can say, here are the organizations that we're reaching out to, or here are the people we hope to partner with. And that just lets us know that you're looking beyond just your ministry context and inviting people in to support you. Obviously, we've talked about being approved by your bishop. The one thing I will say about this is we have certain entities that will apply for this that may not have a bishop. So I'm going to pick on one of them, which is either Episcopal Service Corps or Episcopal Camps and Conference Centers will often apply for these. If you're an Episcopal Camp and Conference Center, but you're not a part of your diocese, your bishop may not be the logical person to get the signature of. So it might be the president of your board, or it might be a bishop in the larger Episcopal Church community who supports what you're doing. So if you have questions or if you don't have a bishop to sign it, just reach out to me and we can work on what sort of check mark of other people know what we're doing that we can accept. We've talked about this. You need to include a video. We've had people that have uploaded it to YouTube and sent us the link. We've had people just email me the video. So if you have trouble getting it into the application, just reach out to me and we'll figure it out. I can also just give you access to a Google Drive folder and you can just plop it into there. So there's many ways. If you're having a hard time uploading it, let me know and we'll get that in. We really try to stress to format this correctly, which might seem like a really stupid thing to focus on. But what that allows us to do is, especially the front page summary, I am old school and I have to print these out and write on them and stuff. And so to have that front page summary helps me remember, oh, this is the grant that is trying to do X. And so we really hope that you'll try to format them all the same way. It also makes so that we don't weigh a grant unintentionally because they did something fancy. So please just try to do, I think it's either Garamond or Times New Roman, and just stick with the grant as it is in the Word doc. I know it's not really cool and flashy, but it also helps our readers make sure that they can read it well. So if you have questions about that, let me know. Again, you do need to submit these online. I'm already talking with someone in the Diocese of Cuba who they know that they will have a hard time submitting this online just because they don't have great Wi-Fi. So we're already working through this. If you know that submitting it online is going to be an issue, again, reach out to me and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. So don't worry about that. And then just mark November 18th at 10 p.m. Eastern is our cutoff, and it will just go silent. The grant application will go down at 10 p.m. that night. If you are applying for a development grant, you have to discuss this with your provincial coordinator or leader. And that is for a couple of reasons, so that they know as the provincial person, like, what are all the big grants that are coming in? And if there are 2 or 3 that are similar, is there a way for them to combine them or, have you guys collaborate? So this is also a way for you, because it's a bigger grant and there's a lot more to it. They can help coach you through making a successful grant application and making an application that really says what you want it to do. So that, again, they are a brilliant group of folks to reach out to. Okay, we'll go through the preferences and then I will pause. As a committee, we're looking for, how are you bringing members of the community together? Your community could be a campus, it could be the town in which you live, it could be a new, what am I trying to say? Commuter call. There's a couple of grants that we've sponsored where commuter colleges are trying to create little communities. And so we want to know that your community is working together. Your community might also be widespread throughout your entire diocese. So we just want to see that, are you trying to get people together to do formation and do spiritual development with young adults? Most all of us now are utilizing digital strategies for engagement and gatherings. So how are you using things, if applicable, like Zoom or Facebook online invites, or I guess Instagram is more the line of young adults right now, but how are you using those things to help push the word out and advertise what you're doing and let people know what you're doing? So just think that through. That's not a huge weight, but we like to invite people to think that through, of how are we using digital strategies to really help enforce what we're trying to do. We love to see that you're trying to reach out to folks that necessarily wouldn't be a part of what we call traditional ministry. So a traditional campus ministry or a traditional young adult ministry. And then finally, if this is applicable, how does your grant address General Convention priorities? Why do we ask about General Convention priorities? There's 2 reasons. One, I am a huge church nerd, and I love for people to look back through the archives and see, oh my gosh, we've actually said a lot about how we should be raising up young adults. We have actually said a lot about how we should be gathering as community. We've said a lot about how should we feed people who need to be fed. So one, it's educating you about what the priorities of convention are, but it also helps you know that you are really leaning into where the church is going. Once you open up the archives, you will just see a wealth of information. The thing that I encourage you to do is to do the search and search by words. And so if you think that that's applicable, I really encourage you to do that. It educates you. It helps us understand what all is going on if you're doing creation care or anything like that. Tons of resolutions on those things. Now, do you have to do all these preference things? No. No, you do not, because that would be almost impossible to do every single one of these. So you don't need to address every single one of these in your application, but what are the ones you're really going to lean into, right? What are the ones that, if you decide, okay, I know that we're trying to bring people together, and part of bringing people together is we're going to do a creation care grant about planting a garden. I'm totally making this up. And it's going to be a community project. So what has General Convention said about that? And how are we trying to bring the community together? Boom, you've hit the preferences. Okay, so you don't need to hit all 4 of these. We just like to see that you're trying to engage in some of the areas of work that the church at large is trying to dig into. Any questions about the preferences or the criteria that I just went through? Okay. moving on. These are just a few tips, and they might seem logical, but they are tips that come from experience of both writing these and reading these. Read the application thoroughly and make notes before you start filling it out. So go through and I've done this before writing a grant. You get in and you're doing all kinds of stuff, and then you read further down and you're like, wait, what I just wrote up there is actually what should be here. And it just can become a jumbled mess. So I encourage you to read the whole grant through and what it's asking, and then start making notes before you start writing up your whole idea. So that's just one little tip. Understand what the grant is asking for and desiring. So just make sure that you're addressing actually what the young adult grants are for. And if you're curious about that, does this really fit? Again, reach out to us and we're happy to help you think through, is this the grant, or is this a Becoming Beloved Community grant, or is this a Creation Care grant? So there's other grants as well. So if you have questions, once you start thinking that through, let me know. Again, tailor your grant to your subject. So yes, this is young adult and campus ministry. You don't have to address every single possible thing. We want to know about your ministry. And so tailor this to, what is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish? What is your goal? Again, know your end goals and then communicate those well throughout your grant. Please, please, please spell out your acronyms before you start using them, because we all use them. This is the church, and we all have tons of shorthand, but we don't always know what your shorthand is. And so rather than having us guess, just spell it out the first time so that we know. And then through the rest of your grant, you can use, for instance, people often say TEC for the Episcopal Church. Spell out the Episcopal Church first, and then through the rest of the grant, you can just say TEC. So we covered this, but make sure that you have, if you have outside support from the diocese, make sure that you state that. Diocese congregation, another group, a local community supporter, just make sure that that's in the grant and evidence so that we understand the full breadth of who's supporting this. I've said this before, but use the given format and just make sure that, again, it's in a Word doc, so it should be easily filled out by you. But if you hit a hitch, just let me know, and we can work that out. I covered this a little bit, but ask someone else to edit or give feedback. And this could even be your friend from school, someone that you trust, to just read it and give you feedback and ask you constructive questions. Be concise and clear. You know, we give you a maximum length, and if you can say it shorter, then do that. But if you need that full length, please use it. And if you need to go even just a little bit over, you can fudge it a little bit, but try to be concise and clear about what it is that you're trying to do. Make sure your summary is a clear overview of the grant. So that front page summary, we ask you for a paragraph. And part of the reason we ask you for that paragraph is, again, so that as we're reading, we can easily say, okay, these are these grants. But that summary also goes to Executive Council to say, these are the grants that we're recommending from these dioceses and communities, and here's each one, and here's the summary. So that summary is really like an executive summary of here's who we are and here's what we're trying to do in a paragraph. So please try to make that clear, as clear as you can. With your budget, be clear, be realistic, and include gifts in kind. So if a church down the street is giving you space for free, make sure that you include that, because that also signals to us that that church down the street believes in what you're trying to do. And so therefore, they may not be giving you money or giving you people support, but they're giving you space. And that's something that needs to be noted. Be realistic. The one thing that we ask folks to do is, if you decide that you need to buy a tent to host a hot chocolate thing because that's what you need to do for football season as people are walking by, look at different price ranges for that tent. so that you're not asking for the most expensive one or the cheapest one that will break in like a week, but just sort of do your due diligence and looking around and being realistic in your budget. And then be as clear as you can. I will say this, the budget that is given to you to do all your stuff in, if you need to add things to it, add things to it. If you need to delete things so that you can add other categories, do that. It's just a sample. It is just something for you to get started with so you can think through all the different possibilities. We've talked about this already. If it applies to your grant, make sure that we understand, your grant readers, how it will be sustainable once this grant is over. And then at the end, how will you evaluate your grant? What does that look like for you? And then again, don't forget your video. And this is one of the things, I'll leave this up. Any questions about the writing tips or what I sort of went through just then? Okay. If you are a fellow church nerd like me and you have like 10 minutes to waste, go into the archives and just search random things that you're interested in. It is fascinating what resolutions we've passed at General Convention. And these go way, way, way back. So it's just a little challenge. It's a lot of fun. Maybe it's just me, but I love it. I will stop sharing and we can ask and answer any other questions you might have or other wonderings that might come up as you're thinking about your particular grant idea or ideas. One thing I forgot to put in there that I will just say, if you are in between, do we need to apply for a development grant or does this need to be a program grant, right? And you're not quite sure, you can apply for both. You will only you won't receive both, right? So and we've had people do that where they apply for the development one and it's sort of a much bigger, broader view. And then they realize, but if we can't do that, we could do this to get started with. And that's what the program grant would be for. And so you would take just a piece of that development grant and move that into a program grant. So that's applicable as well. So you can apply twice if you want to, but they should be, you shouldn't just copy a development grant into a program grant because we'll be like, that's too much to do in 1 year, right? So sort of hone that down into a program or a project grant. Other questions or wonderings that you all have?
I'm wondering about, and maybe this will be covered for those who are awarded a grant, but what are the reporting expectations after grants have been received?
Yeah, great question. So they obviously aren't due until the end, and there's a financial report that you'll fill out that's pretty easy. It's not, we don't make you account for every single penny and turn in every single receipt. We just sort of, where did you spend the money and did it, that kind of stuff. And then from my office, we invite you to do, if you've ever done a daily examine, an examine is sort of like reflecting back on the day and looking forward to the day ahead. We invite you, we have a little form to do that with your grant, looking back on your grant. What did you learn? Where did you see God at work? What would you, next year, what might this look like and do differently? So, and that's not we don't expect 5 pages of that, but it's just a way for you to really reflect on that and learn from that.
Sure. And so if it's a development grant, are there 2 reports?
Just one.
Year? Oh my.
That's fun. I love when
It is, except
technology-
it's so unintentional. And anyway, so just
Celebratory.
one after the 2 years or, okay. Great.
Yeah, at the very end. And the other thing I'll say, and we had this especially happened during COVID, is you might get into your grant and be like, okay, what we had planned is totally not going to work now because of whatever, right? External things happen. Please just reach out to me and communicate that. And we can often tweak your grant and just sort of make a note that this has shifted from during COVID being a feeding program to being a grab and go lunch pail program kind of thing, right? Or whatever that looks like. And so just be in communication and don't don't think I'm gonna be mad or anything like that. We've had a few folks who've applied for grants and gotten them, and then something has happened and they just haven't been able to do the project. And so if that's the case also, you just send the money back and no harm, no foul. And so we just then move that money into the next year's pot of money. So that happens too. No shame in that. Other questions or thoughts? Alfreda, I'm going to put you on the spot because you've done a grant before, and any words of wisdom as they're writing or in the midst of doing their grant.
Um, I think one of the hardest things, and it's been several years now, one of the hardest things for the first grant we did was to do sort of collaboration with others because we were sort of siloed. But it was helpful to make ourselves kind of reach out a little bit. The last one we did was actually as a result of COVID. And I'm trying to think maybe some of the things we learned from that. Yeah, I would just say we thought long and hard about we processed a lot on what we wanted to do with how we wanted to present something and what we wanted to do and how could we make it. At that point we were concerned with making it COVID proof so that whatever happened we could still do the process, and that worked out nicely. So I guess maybe having some plans B in case plan A doesn't work, because I mean that's always the case, but I think that was really helpful to have sort of a safety net. If this doesn't work, then this is kind of where we're headed.
Yeah.
That helped a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Sort of a if then, if this, then that kind of flow chart. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Shannon, are there other restrictions for things that cannot be used for that, right off the top of your head that we need to sort of be mindful of?
There are not a lot of restrictions. The one that is a little bit weird, so I say it out loud when anybody asks, is we won't pay for single-use water bottles. So if you're doing like a food cart, whatever, right? Soda is fine, but like we won't cover just like the single-use plastic water bottles. That was actually a general convention resolution in 2015 or 18, I can't remember. So that we won't cover. We try not to, and I say try not to because there have been instances where we do it, cover physical plant needs. And I know sometimes that's a total need. But if it's a piece of it that will then allow you to do ministry well, we've leaned into that. So there's one project, I think it was at Florida State University, could be mistaken, I know it was in Florida, where they had an old building they weren't using anymore that was right next to their campus ministry. And they leveled the building and built a parking lot. And that parking lot actually helps fund over half of their ministry because they sell parking spaces throughout the year and at football games. So there's things like that that we've said, yeah, of course, because that's actually going to help fund your ministry going forward. So things like that are okay. Do you need an extra desk because you've hired somebody or whatever? But we try not to do capital improvements. We don't have a lot of money. And so we know that capital improvements are a lot. So those kinds of things, sometimes we grant them, but a lot of it has to be sort of a very specific case that will feed into making the ministry more sustainable and a better ministry.
What
If,
about stipend or salary or some kind of
yeah,
payment to a person?
yeah, that's where I was just going. So if you're going to pay somebody, there's a couple of things. So if you're paying for a new campus chaplain or young adult minister at your church or whatever the situation is, if you're giving them a salary, that's one of the instances where we like to see, is this sustainable? So after the 2 years of this grant is up, what fills that void of money that you're getting from the grant? If it is that you're paying for like consultants to come in and do something, that's obviously a one-off, so that's not a big deal. Or if you're paying for interns. So if you're paying for interns and they're doing specific work that will be done by the end of your grant, you don't need to prove sustainability. If you are paying for interns, but you want to continue that ministry, that's where you would want to kind of speak into what that would look like as far as how you might get money once the grant is over to continue this internship program. So we do allow for that, but we really like to see that it's been well thought out about if we're paying somebody now and we want to pay for them after the grant, how are we going to do that? What's our hoped for so that that person can not find themselves looking for a job in 2 years, essentially. Does that help? Yeah, Jesse.
Hi, thank you for all of this information. It's really helpful, especially as a new applicant myself, writing a first campus ministry grant. My question is just kind of based off of your experience. We're in the process of revitalizing a campus ministry that went dormant at my university. I'm actually a parishioner at my church that's right next door to the university that I'm a professor of. And so
Okay.
I've been working with our rector to put plans in place for revitalizing it and working with our campus chaplain. He's not an Episcopalian, but is really supportive of revitalizing the campus ministry. And I was just kind of curious, based off your experience, seeing many of these applications come through, in the cases where campus ministries are trying to be revitalized. I'm just curious, like, what methods or approaches you have seen be very successful, in revitalizing dormant ministries.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will definitely, whether you get the grant or not, I will I can connect you with a campus minister whose name is Alan Wakabayashi. He's the campus chaplain at Princeton. And he does some great work around this of how do you reach out to your campus folks? How do you even know who to reach out to? Who is your community? Sort of getting you to reflect upon that. So he will be a great thought partner and guide through that. Speaking from experience, when I was a chaplain at University of Wisconsin in Madison years ago, many years ago, longer than I tend to want to say, but one of the things that was key for me is reaching out to the administration and just saying, hey, we're here and we're sort of back up and running, because mine was sort of a revitalization, and anything we can do to help. And then I also connected with it was the large university, so lots of different religious programs and groups, connected with my fellow sort of Protestant leaders. And so we would have lunch together, and it was just a great way to hear that they're having the same issues we are, or hey, I did that 3 years ago, here's some pointers. So that is a great group to reach out to. And this is something that Alan can help you with, is really looking at who is your community and who can you reach out to. We've had a few campus ministries who really tried to start a student ministry, and what ended up growing out of that was staff and faculty who really wanted to have that spiritual connection. And there were obviously some students as well, but they found a great connection to staff and faculty, and especially on smaller college campuses where they needed someone to help with mental health things that were coming up. They don't expect you to be a counselor, but they want you to help point them to greater resources. They want to know when there's been a suicide on campus, who can they reach out to? So making those connections is really important as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, and I will connect you with Alan for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to make that connection. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to loop back to the question that you just were talking about stipend salary consultants.
Yep.
I have a program director that is starting on or arriving on Saturday, starting on Monday. Sing
Yay.
hallelujah, praise to Jesus. Yes. Um, and she's gonna be full-time and permanent and long-term, we hope. I mean, this position is a long-term one. What I have been imagining, though, is building into this budget some like supplementing of her salary based on the time for the developing of the training curriculum itself, of working with consultants and a team to develop this, so not that then once that funding is gone, we need to figure out how to get more funding, but just to recognize a significant or an amount of time is going to be spent on this by a staff person. Can we pay her with the grant in that way, knowing that that's not forever going to be where her salary comes from or parts of her salary comes from, but that she's going to be doing a lot of this work, and we want to. Does that make sense?
It totally does. In fact, that's how part of my salary is being paid for right now. So
Right.
we got
Okay.
a little grant and we said, okay, we're going to offload this piece. So we have a consultant doing a piece.
Right.
Then my job shifted for the 5 years to running the grant. So it's the same
Right.
kind of thing.
Okay.
So you'll just want to give language to the fact that,
Okay.
yes, we've hired her full time. If we get the grant, she would be
Right.
working on this. So some of her salary would come from that.
Okay.
And she would continue to be full time when.
Okay, great. She's not losing her job if this doesn't
Right.
or when this. Okay.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've done that before too, where it's just
Okay.
they either get extras money because they're doing extra.
That's right.
Or, like in my case, we've hired a consultant to do some of this work. And so
Right.
that's where the salary is going for the 5 years of the grant. Yeah. Other questions? Alrighty. If you're an introvert like me and you'll think of a question an hour or a day or two later, like I've said throughout, please feel free to reach out to me. I do travel on and off, so if you get an out of office message, I will respond. It'll just be a little bit slower. And so after we get off, I will send you that email. I'll send you the link so that you can find who your provincial coordinator is. I'll send you the link so you can look and see if your diocese is good to go on its assessment, so you know how to answer that question. And any of the other links that were in the presentation itself, I'll send to you, and I'll send you a PDF of the presentation. So just be in touch, and I'm really glad to see you all and look forward to hopefully seeing you on other webinars and Zooms that we'll be doing in the future.